Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't we start off? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, so I am a mom to a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, which is super fun. They keep me super busy. And then my husband's in the Army National Guard. And so we did a recent move. We're excited about where we're at here in Florida. So new things, exciting things happening for our family. And then as far as my business is, I'm a business operations consultant, and I help service providers and coaches save 5 hours a week by streamlining and automating their businesses using tools like Dubsado.
Very cool. Okay. So I'm excited to talk all things automation systems, all the things. Let's start off with boundaries with your clients, because I know this is like a huge issue that I've seen some of my students having, and like working with them to get over like actually holding their boundaries. So how do you hold boundaries with clients?
I think the first step is to know what your boundaries are. I think a lot of times we just start to throw around boundaries, and that's a boundary issue. And we never really take a step back and say, well, what boundaries am I even supposed to have? What do those even mean? Because they look very, very different depending on who the person is, what they want, and what the expectation is. Because really what we find when our boundaries are getting trampled, it's often because we have not been clear on expectations. Expectations have not been properly set.
Yep.
So step one in holding boundaries with your clients is first to figure out what your boundaries even are. And to help you get started, there are two in particular that you need to get clear on. And those are, again, kind of turn into expectations you start to setting for your clients. The first one, which is the one we often hear about, is communication. Right?
Yep.
Clients are emailing us all day long, getting frustrated if we're not quick to answer. They're sending us Facebook messages and Instagram DMs and emails, and then we're just feeling overwhelmed and pressured to respond.
Yep.
Well, oftentimes, why do we feel pressured to respond? Because we have set the expectation that we're going to answer immediately.
Yes.
We have, the word trained feels a little weird or harsh, but we've kind of trained them that we are going to be available to them in that way. And so now we have to do some untraining there, where if we had just set that boundary and that expectation to begin with, that the way I'm going to communicate with you will be through email, or it's through Vox, or whatever it is. You pick your preferred method of communication. It's how you want them to reach out to you. You pick that, and then you communicate that to them and say, this is how I would like us to communicate. And so you pick your preferred method of communication, and then what does that turnaround time look like? What does that look like? Am I going to get back to you within an hour, within a day, within a week? And any of those options is fine. I was talking with a client, and we were working on her, what I call an expectations email. This is the email where you use to welcome them into the working relationship, and you set a lot of these boundaries and expectations. And I was going through, I have like a template, and I said, okay, and so what's the turnaround time? Like 24 hours, 48 hours? She says, oh my gosh, like a week. and I was like, okay, that's okay, because wouldn't you rather know upfront when you go into this working relationship?
Yes.
That this person is going to take up to a week to respond to you?
Yep.
One, if I know that, if my expectation is 24 hours or 48 hours and I don't hear from you, what am I going to do? I'm going to send you another email.
Yeah.
And then another day, and then I send you another email. And all the while, you have this expectation that it should be a week.
Yep.
And if I know that up front, and I'm saying that just does not feel good for me, I'm not available to wait for a week to talk to somebody, then we shouldn't work together, because we're going to be frustrated and angry, and it's not going to be a pleasant work experience. So either I can say up front, that's not what I was expecting, but I'm okay. I'm used to that. And now when I email you, I will wait a week to hear from you. Or I can say up front, like, that's not going to work for me, and I better go find somebody else. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
For sure. So I love this. This is something I learned really quickly in this business of, especially having private clients. I need to tell them, if I want to have a life, like, all right, I take weekends off. So you can, like, you can reach out to me on Voxer. There's a good chance I probably won't get back to you until Monday. If I do get back to you, like that, great, but just like don't expect it, right?
Correct.
So I think having those boundaries, that has been so helpful for me, and just maintaining sanity, and for me keeping my priorities first, which is being mom first and then business owner.
Yes.
So
And with this virtual world that we live in and how many of us are working with people all over the country or potentially all over the world,
yeah,
you may not even know exactly what time zone somebody's in or what that translations look like. And they could be emailing you completely unaware that they are regularly interrupting your dinner every
yeah,
night. And that is not their fault if you have not told them that you're not available at that point. Like that's
yep.
on you to come to them. And it really is surprising how many times I will ask somebody, one of the clients I'm working with, I'll say, okay, well, did you tell this client that you like to stop working at 4 because you need to go pick up your children and you're going to do dinner as a family? Well, no. Well, then I'm like, okay, well, that's step 1. Let's tell them that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just a matter of we tell the client and they say, oh, I had no idea. Like you
Yep.
always responded. You always answered. I had no idea that I was impacting your life in this way.
Huge, huge, huge. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about being able to give clients a high touch experience without being like hands-on 24/7 and doing everything manually. So how do you help entrepreneurs maintain that high touch experience without being super hands-on?
For sure. So a lot of the business owners I work with, as many high achieving, high performing women are, we adore our clients. We, especially for coaches, we're in long-term relationships with them. We want to give them an amazing experience. We want to build up that relationship. And I see this fear that if we start to automate things, that's going to go away, that their clients aren't going to feel loved, that they're not going to feel supported. And then I also see a little bit of that control piece of, well, I just want to look at the email before it goes out. Like, but you wrote the email, you know what the email says, like it's okay. But that stems though from our desire just to massively deliver and massively support our clients. We just have this, not even relevant fear that something is in that email that's just not going to be right that one time.
Yep.
So one of the things I do is I work through them, and often when we're on our calls, I'll hear things like, oh, well, I tend to forget to send the contract and then they have to ask me about it. And I just hate when they have to ask me about it. And I was supposed to send this link and I forgot to send this link. And so they're actually looking for ways to be able to manually send these things, like the more hours in the day, I just need to be more efficient at manually sending these emails. No, let's automate them, because what is providing a better client experience? What's providing a better client experience is the second they get off the phone with you, you go in and click a button in Dubsado and they automatically get a proposal, which lists out the deliverables. They get a contract, they get their first invoice. The second they sign off, that same Dubsado workflow go ahead and sends them a welcome email and it restates how excited they are to be with you, a link to schedule a call. Maybe there's a pre-recorded video in there where you're talking to them and sharing your excitement and letting them know what's going to happen during the relationship. That is a stellar client experience.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes from you, of course, once it's set up, is the click of a button.
Yeah.
Whereas when we get stuck in this idea that, oh, I need to manually send it and I need to go in and I need to change this, now we're creating big delays. And when these business owners often have high-level clients, high-ticket clients, and they want to know right away. They want to get the ball rolling. They're like, I just paid you several $1,000s. Like, what's the next step?
For sure.
And so the truth is getting this stuff automated and having it just go out immediately really is providing a much better client experience than you fumbling around trying to do everything manually.
For sure. I love automation and systems. Do you think you can over automate things?
Absolutely. I have seen it before where I know I'm in some chat bot on Facebook Messenger, or I just know when I've, sent some emails with somebody and I'm like, well, that's not really quite the right answer to, what I'm getting at. So I completely think that there is, and I'm the automation expert, and I still say like there is absolutely too much automation sometimes. And so it really is about finding that balance between what should we be automating and what should we be saving for an actual human to human interaction. And the things we want to automate are those repetitive manual tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked, sending contracts, sending emails, following up on the questionnaire they didn't answer, getting appointments scheduled, invoicing, all of those things where it really doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we're trying to find a VA to do these things anyway. So it's not like it's Rachel sending it to the client, right? It would be Rachel's VA. And so the things that we want to reserve for that person to person is anytime maybe we're asking for a referral, we're wanting to get testimonials. I like to automate client check-ins. So when email goes out, that automatically asks them a series of questions about how work is going and the relationship is going. But the follow-up to that should be personal, right? I have read this. These are my thoughts on it. This is how I feel about it. And then obviously like the work you're doing together is going to be very high touch and personal, but stick with automating on the things that it's really going to be a cut and paste email anyway. Right. It's something everybody's going to get regardless. And the stuff that you may even consider outsourcing.
Got it. What are you mentioned Dubsado. So that's a tool that you use. What do you use that for specifically?
Dubsado is a CRM, and that's an important distinction because there are so many tools. I often find too, business owners are getting confused on what they actually need. Yeah. And they're trying to use a project management tool as a CRM or a CRM to manage their projects. And so getting clear on that is really important. So Dubsado is a CRM, and you're going to use your CRM for nurturing your sales leads. So people who, after they're scheduling discovery calls, maybe follow-ups you're doing, proposals you may be sending out. That is where you're kind of bringing in people into your CRM, one like Dubsado. This is also then where you're moving into onboarding with them. This is where you'll be sending out contracts, those initial emails, maybe some welcome emails, questionnaires, intake forms, all that kind of new onboarding stuff where you're just needing a lot of back and forth paperwork and scheduling calls. And the reason you want to get all that stuff in a CRM is because you can automate it. CRMs just inherently have that ability for automation where other types of tools don't necessarily have those capabilities.
Got it. What are some other tools that you use?
So Dubsado is the big one I use in terms of CRMs. It's hands down my favorite. I started to really hone in on that because
And can you say what CRM stands for people that don't know?
Yes, customer relationship management.
Got it. Okay.
So I just found a lot of the business owners I were working with were already using it. It is very robust in terms of the automation capabilities. Once set up, it's pretty user-friendly. Other ones out there are things like 17 Hats. People have probably heard of. Honeybook is another one that a lot of people have heard of. Obviously there's lots out there. Those I would say are probably often three of the bigger ones that kind of solopreneurs start looking at. And then you can start getting into things like Active Campaign, where it can also do a lot of the same things.
Got it. So Active Campaign, Dubsado, you need both, correct? Or could you use one or the other?
It kind of depends on exactly what you need. There, may be some functionality that one can do over the other, but when you're looking at a CRM, what you want to know it can do is it should be able to help you keep track of sales leads. It should have automation capabilities in terms of sending out proposals, contracts, invoicing is a good one. And then there are some bonuses to some, like Dubsado has a really great scheduler. And so you can have automation triggers within their inherent scheduler. And so there would be kind of other pieces you can look at and say, what's really going to best suit me? But if your CRM will do those basic things, then that's a good place to start.
Okay. Outside of a CRM, what are some other programs that you would recommend?
Yeah, so most service providers are going to need a few tools. And this, I think, is often something that confuses people also. I hear all the time, I don't want to have too many tools. I don't want to have too many tools. And so they are trying to cram everything into one tool. And that just typically is not how things are going to work out, especially as a business is growing, because it's just not going to do what you need it to do.
Yeah.
So most service providers, coaches are going to need a CRM, and then you're going to need a project management tool. And
Okay.
so when offboarding is done and the client is you're now in that getting the work done phase, you're going to want to move your client into a project management tool. The two most popular right now are Trello and Asana. And then, ClickUp is storming the scene now. I keep hearing a lot of people talk about ClickUp. And then Monday.com is another one that I know some business owners use. So your project management tool, this is less about like sending out things and automating. It's definitely more internal. Mm-hmm. How can I track this internally from my team members? How do I know as a copywriter that my team member has this ready for me to edit and review? How do I know this has been sent to the client? Have we gotten revisions yet? So it's really all about tracking where things are with a project. And so it's much more internal facing than external facing with your clients. Some offer, so Trello actually does have quite a few automation capabilities, which mm-hmm. a lot of people like. And that's the one with the boards and you're moving the cards along, and it's much more visual. Asana is a little more checklist style feeling. Mm-hmm. What's funny is a lot of the more creative types I work with, web designers and maybe copywriters, they really gravitate towards Trello. And then every bookkeeper I've worked with, and then some of the more like accountant type people really like Asana, or like project manager type people really like Asana. So it's just kind of funny. You can see how people's personalities and just how their brain works can start to influence which of these tools they prefer.
Yeah.
But yeah, the trick there is to know when someone is moving into the project management tool. Like, when are we done onboarding and it's time to get the work done? And then just having that space where you can be internally communicating with other team members and keeping track of a project's progress.
Cool. We've used Trello and Asana. We started using Trello when we were smaller. And so I feel like when we had a smaller team, it was easier. And I like using it for a lot of my own personal things. Yeah. So just like for me. And as we've grown, we've mostly shifted our team over to Asana. And I find that works better for us. So they're both good. But yeah, Trello,
totally agree.
I like personally.
Yeah. And I think it depends too on how many moving parts your business and your project has. I was working with a woman who sets up podcast interviews for people, and she had a lot of moving parts, and we saw it just getting increasingly difficult to manage all of this on a Trello board. And it was feeling like, okay, whereas other businesses, even once they got bigger, the moving parts were small enough that it was actually easy enough. So that is a great point, though, to say you may grow out of one tool and need to grow into another one as your business creates, more complexity or gets deeper. And then, or even just right out of the gate, depending on how many moving parts and what you need to track, one may start to prove better than the other. So yeah, service product coaches, you definitely need a CRM, definitely need a project management tool. And then you often need, obviously, a scheduler, Calendly, Acuity. Dubsado has its own scheduler, a place where you're keeping track of calls and getting those things happening automatically. And then you often need a file storage, whether that's Google Drive, Dropbox, somewhere where you can house documents, mostly internally, but oftentimes even maybe you're sharing Google Drives or Dropbox folders with a client if you're needing to capture a lot of data or content from them.
Got it. What's your DISCO framework?
My DISCO framework. So I use this with all of my clients, and the D is for define. So you need to define your role, you need to define your workflows, and you're going to use the DISCO framework. I use this for my clients to help them start streamlining, start automating, and saving time. When I work with business owners, my goal is to get them saving 5 hours a week or more. And I'm happy to report that I accomplished that. So the first step is define. So we define the business owner's role, their workload, really what do we have? Then we're going to identify gaps, drop-offs, redundancies, where are any holes in the workflow? Where are we getting those bottlenecks? We're going to start streamlining. So this is where we're going to really take a close look at emails. Again, let's get rid of those redundancies. How can we make this more efficient? And then we're going to create phases and milestones. This is where accountability starts to come in. This is how, when we have a project in our project management tool, how do we know it's keeping pace? When we've sent it to the client, does it get lost in Never Never Land until we hear from the client 3 weeks later? Where are those checkpoints that we know we're going to deliver what we promised in the time frame we promised and within the budget that we have promised? Now, once you have moved through all of these, we have now gotten to the point where we can come to outsource and automate. So now that we have everything really streamlined, and importantly, we have identified where our moments of accountability are. This is why a lot of people struggle to outsource and automate, because they have not identified those moments of accountability. Once we have those in place, suddenly outsourcing, delegating, and automating gets really, really easy, because it's just so obvious now. We've streamlined, this is the same email I send every single time I get off of a kickoff call with somebody. Maybe I can just have that happen automatically versus manually sending it. So once you go through those steps, we get to that last one, and it's so easy and so clear on what can move off of the business owner's plate and what needs to stay in their zone of genius.
How do you decide, like, what should only I do and what can I delegate and get off my plate?
Again, once we start to move through that streamlining step, I think, is where things really start to become obvious. And it's when we look at the email, the step in the process, the step in the project, when we can look at that and say, well, does this really need your attention or does it not? If you never saw this, would that impact the end result of this project? And if the answer is no, then we can most certainly move that onto an outsource, a delegate, an automate bucket, right? And move it over there. But if it's a situation where it says, no, if I didn't put my eyes on this, the end result would be impacted, and probably not in a good way, then it's definitely something that needs to stay on your plate.
Got it. What's the best book that you've read?
Ooh, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
That's a good one. All right, talk to us about that one. Why do you like it?
I love this book. So in the book, he talks about how everyone has an upper limit. This ability to receive happiness, the good feeling, joy, abundance, all of those things. And for some people, that upper limit is very low. For other people, it's very high. And there are a variety of reasons for that. And then he goes on to talk about why we have upper limits. So this is where things like unworthiness may be showing up, feeling like we don't deserve more, that maybe we're inherently flawed. I love the story he shares. It's early on in the book. He says he had recently sent his daughter off to college, and on this particular day at work, he was just thinking about her and how proud he was of her and just how much he loved her. And was just so grateful that, he had his daughter, and then immediately became overwhelmed with this feeling of something has happened to my daughter. She is not safe. Something bad has happened to her. So much he actually called her dorm and had them go and check on her. And the woman at the dorm says, well, I see her. She's outside. It looks like she's playing soccer. She's perfectly fine. Of course, he's now a little embarrassed. And, I'm sorry. Of course she's fine. And the woman said, it happens all the time. I get these calls all the time. Don't worry about it. And they got off the phone thinking, why would so many parents do this? And I know we've all had this experience where, I have this wonder and I'm so full of joy and love. And then, oh my gosh, it's all going to get taken away, or what's going to happen to me? And that's your upper limit. That's how you know you hit your upper limit of feeling like abundance and joy. So it's a really, really neat book. It's a super smart book. I highly, highly recommend it.
Cool. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
leaving something better than how I found it.
Hmm.
So I think whether, even something small where I talk with a friend who's just having a bad day and I just have an ear for them or help them take their mind off it for a little while and make them feel a little better. Helping a business owner get more time for their family. If it's, we're out and I see trash and I'm picking it up, just anywhere I can, if I can make something a little bit better than how I found it, I think all of that starts to accumulate and definitely make an impact.
I like it. Where can we connect with you?
So I'm on Facebook at follow Melissa V. Morris, and then my website is melissavmorris.com.
Cool. Melissa, you are awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I had fun.